Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event. Can you find a job on TikTok? Basic job search strategies. My name's Emily. I'm just going to go over some ground rules before we get started. So John today has a presentation. He'll take Q&A toward the end. If you are an online participant, place your questions in the chat or the Q&A, and either myself or Sharina, my colleague, will be able to assist you. That includes any sort of technical issues that may arise during the presentation. We have 3 in-person attendees today who are here and just a couple of folks online. So thank you for being here. We also appreciate your patience during this hybrid event. It can get a little tricky, so please do let us know if you experience any tech issues. But I'm going to turn it over to John now, and he'll introduce himself and get started with this presentation. Thanks, John.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm John Charles. It's my first metaverse presentation, so I'm trying my best to talk to the in-person folks as well as those of you who are virtual. I am John Charles. I'm a career advisor working with School of International Service, first and second year students, as well as College of Arts and Sciences, undergraduates and graduate students, and School of Education students. Those students tend to be the graduate students. So today's session, I have to admit, is a little misleading in the title. Can I find a job using TikTok? Now, we just use that to get your attention. But I should address the fact that it is possible using social media to find a job. Now, TikTok does have some, there are some reels that you can see on there. I know we call them Instagram reels. I don't know if on TikTok we actually call them reels or just videos or whatever. But I actually have seen instances on Twitter where people have followed a company. They've made really thoughtful responses to postings that the company did, and that led to getting a job. So there are ways that you can be an influencer and to get noticed on social media.
Make your computer easier.
But today we're not going to worry too much about that. I am actually happy to discuss that in more detail. So if you have questions that you want to ask about that, certainly we can. My goal today is not to use up a whole hour. I know people are busy, and I will probably present for 15-20 minutes and leave questions. I want to make sure though that this is useful to all of you. So for those who are in the virtual space, please feel free to type in the chat if you have a question. For those of you in person, if you have a question, raise your hand and I'm happy to address it as we go along. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm very grateful to my colleague, Julia Beyer, who created in 2021 a presentation on PowerPoint that actually mirrors much of what I want to talk about today. So in the interest of not reinventing the wheel, I have chosen that presentation. Also, in the interest of not pretending that I actually, am responsible for this presentation, we left Julia's photo on there because she's the one who created it. Now, why don't we go? Yeah, let's proceed a little bit through the PowerPoint. My purpose in providing this is to have a guidepost. I don't want to be the only person who is, or I don't want this to drive the session, but I do want it to be kind of a way to hold on to what the topics are and to be able to grasp them perhaps a little bit better. So as it was designed, I feel like a weathercaster. We've got a cold front moving through later. So in terms of a job search, there are some aspects that are important to think about that might not seem directly related, but actually do relate to it. And it has to do, so for example, who am I as a person? Like, can we explore our own goals and our own kind of personality as a way to understand how we can be effective in a job search? What can you do in your job search, right? What are the tasks that you should be doing? Are there virtual tools that you could use that would help you? Certainly there are. We're not going to talk about events, but maybe a little bit about a timeline. We're going to talk about a timeline that might be useful for you as a student focusing on the undergraduate experience, but of course it does apply to graduate students as well. Yeah, so why don't we, if we can move through to the next. Some of you might be aware that we have assessments that can help in your job kind of goals. So the strong interest inventory is one I've been recommending to students quite a bit in the semester. For whatever reason, I've had students who are talking about changing their major, or maybe they haven't figured out what their major should be or will be. And the strong interest inventory is a great tool for helping to solidify those ideas and get a better sense of what you're going to do. Then there's also the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. This is a personality assessment, and it gives you great insight into the kinds of work and the kinds of work settings that might fit best for you. We also have on our Career Center website, which is www.american.edu/career center, we have career guides by undergraduate major that are listed, and we're building these out as we go through time, which might be really helpful, especially to those of you in, we call it CAS among the staff. A lot of students call it CAS, the College of Arts and Sciences. Thanks. All right, so in your job search, what are some basic things to do? Again, the reason it's important for me to use a presentation is because I can sometimes forget about details. You know, I'm not like the detailed person. And so I need to remember tools that will help me to focus on those details. So a presentation is how I do it. Here are some things that you can be doing in your job search. Have you heard about an elevator pitch? For those of you in the room, raise your hand if you have heard what it is. Basically, it's a short verbal introduction that you might give at an internship fair if you're meeting a representative. You might go up, introduce yourself, and say, "Hi, I'm John Smith. I'm a student at American University. I'm studying international studies, and I really hope to work as a diplomat someday." So those could be elements of an elevator pitch. Of course, right? Resume and cover letter, those are important elements of a job application. And in terms of the other ways that you can present yourself, we have, for some people, especially like any artists in the room, any performers, sometimes people will have an online portfolio that can be really useful in showing their expertise to a potential employer. And then, of course, interviewing. Interviewing is a tough one because we don't get that much experience to do it, and it can be very nerve-wracking. So we do have tools that can help you practicing interviewing as well. All right. And as we think about these different elements of a job search, there's other places and ways to get information and help. So there are some newsletters on campus. There's also our very famous Handshake platform where a lot happens. And I think students, I was meeting with a student today, for example, and she said, "Wow, I didn't know there was all that many things in Handshake." So of course, Handshake is where you search for jobs, right? Search for positions. There's other places where you can find jobs, but I always tell people, start with Handshake, because there are employers who work with us. They work with my colleagues in our employment outreach team, and they're looking for people with specific skills. And I've heard many stories, not just a few, many stories from students who said that they've gotten messages from employers asking them to apply for a position because they had certain skills. In some cases, it was language or other technical skills, but it could be a variety of things that you could offer. So that's one more thing I wanted to point out. If we can move on here, thanks. So Alumni Fire is a platform that helps students to connect with American University graduates, American University alumni. It's a small platform. It's not as big as LinkedIn, which some of you have heard about, but we've had really good feedback as far as the response rate. So when students go on to Alumni Fire, it's a more than 50% response rate that they will get some return information. What am I trying to say? A response, like a return message from one of the alums that they reached out to. Okay, and so using LinkedIn that's probably my favorite place to help students connect with alumni. And here's one thing that I do that you might want to consider trying. If you go on LinkedIn and you identify American University alumni, and if you notice that someone is connected to them, so for example, if I'm connected, it'll be a first degree connection. I'm always willing to help students to introduce them to those alumni. So here's how it works. You'd send me a message on LinkedIn. John, I noticed you're connected to Sally Jenkins, and I'd really love to learn about journalism and the work that she does. So then I would send a message to Sally and to you being the student asking me. And that way it's more likely that there's going to be a response. So we want to be effective, and people are more likely to respond to that kind of an outreach than if it's just someone they don't know who's reaching them. All right. Okay, we can skip through there. There's some other tools that are really, really useful. I want to point out Big Interview. Raise your hand if you've heard of Big Interview for those in the room. All right, a few of you have. That's great. So Big Interview is a tool that uses your webcam or whatever computer camera you have. And I guess it would be a webcam. Maybe I'm overthinking this. And so the idea is that to practice interviews, ideally, right, we'll maybe do them with a person and they'll ask us questions, they'll respond. You don't always have that luxury. So with Big Interview, you can record your own answers to questions and then watch them, see how you did, and maybe get feedback from one of your career advisors on how well you did. It's an excellent simulation. It's not exactly like being in an interview, but it's pretty close. And I think this kind of practice is how we get better at doing interviews, especially if we don't have that many actual interviews to practice on. So I want to highlight that for you. And let's see, I think we can move through to the next, right? School newsletters can be helpful. There's Twitter feeds where, for example, advisors will post positions that are available specifically to certain populations at AU. And yeah, that's enough for that page. We'll go on to, I want to point out, We Know Success is another tool that you can use. It's a website that's maintained by American University. It shows where our graduates have gone to work. So it's a really nice way of seeing specific employers, and then also things like what are the salaries of alumni, and what do they make after they leave American University. And then yes, let me put in a plug for the Office of Merit Awards. The Office of Merit Awards, or OMA, is part of the Career Center, but they're not physically located in the Career Center. They're over in the basement of Let's Hall. Am I right? Yes. And so why is that office important? That is the office that helps students with nationally recognized scholarships, fellowships. They work closely with students on things like those fellowship applications, especially for Boren and Fulbright, and in some cases, Rhodes scholarships. The reason why you might want to take a look at the Office of Merit Awards is they have an awareness of programs that maybe are a little bit off the beaten path. So especially as they relate to academic pursuits, you'll want to get to know the work that they do over there. And there are many presentations, of course, too, that you could watch in webinar form that would help you on things such as the Boren scholarship or Boren fellowship, depending on whether you're an undergrad or a grad student. And then, yeah, I think we can move through this one. All right, I want to spend a little bit of time on a career timeline because that's something that students always ask me about. What should I be doing? So for example, if I'm an undergraduate student, what should I be doing in my first year, second year, third year, fourth year? Now, students who graduate in 3 years, and we have a number of programs where they do. I was speaking to a student the other day who's in the public health 3-year program. So in effect, everything gets pushed a year earlier. So that timeline can become, how should we say, accelerated. So what I recommend for students, and this might be obvious, is it's never too early to meet with a career advisor. Maybe you don't have a specific question. Maybe you're not applying for an internship or a job, but it's helpful for us just to get to know you and to speak to you about what are some of your overall career aspirations. So don't hesitate to set up an appointment, even from the early part of your college career. Now, if you're later in your career, let's say you're a second-year student or a third-year student, or those of you who are the so-called seniors who are about to graduate, there's different, how should we put it? There's different goals, perhaps, in what you want to get out of an appointment with us. But just maintain that connection. And I think the better that we know you, in other words, the more we meet with you, the better we are able to understand what your goals are and how we can help you. So that's sort of my message with that timeline. So think about where you are in your progression towards your degree. Now, if you're a graduate student, if you're here for 2 years, if you're here for a relatively short program, that's again going to accelerate the importance of meeting with us and making connections. All right, so I think we can skip through that. Yeah, so for those who are graduating, clearly the fall is the time to begin to talk about a job search, a post-graduation job search. I want to emphasize, though, if it feels like you're behind in the process, it does no good to worry about the fact like, oh no, I'm behind in the process. Just get started and we'll work from there with you. All righty. So I think we can just go through. Oh yeah. So I will finish my presentation with just a little bit about resources we have for specific students. So for example, different categories of students could be first-generation students, students who are the first in their family to have a university experience. Transfer students are another one. Sometimes transfer students feel a little disconnected because they didn't come in with their cohort, and they have a harder time making adjustments. And so that's where we really want to emphasize the importance of coming in and meeting with us. And then, of course, active military, veterans, and international students. I know that this has been a very difficult period for international students dealing with the pandemic and restrictions, in some cases of leaving their own country and then coming into this country. We want all students to know that if you have a particular challenge, it's our job to help you address it. So that would be another group that we really want to help. Of course, there's other categories that we can talk about. People with multicultural backgrounds, LGBTQA community, and undocumented students. We want to help everyone who is here, regardless of your situation, status, challenge, questions. All right. So now, oh, that's right. There is one more item to talk about. Is LinkedIn Learning is a resource available to American University students where you can do video tutorials on various subjects. And a few of them include job hunting, career sort of topics that might be of interest to you. So things like rock your LinkedIn profile, learning personal branding, and turning an internship into a job are a few that are available. All right. I guess we can just move through. We have a somewhat dated photo of the career advisors. But remember, in this, again, in this metaverse, you can have in-person appointments, you can have virtual appointments, either. So typically those will be in Zoom. They could also be email as well. Sometimes, depending on time differences, I've worked with students that way. And so please take advantage of what we have to offer. I will then ask if people in the audience have any questions, people watching virtually have any questions, please. Yes.
So this is kind of like a two-part question, but the first part being, even if you aren't sure about like what you want your career path to be, should you still meet with a career advisor? And then part two to that would be, do you have any advice for students that might not be sure what their career path is like?
Great. So even if you're not sure what your career path might be, should you meet with a career advisor? I would argue that that's actually the most important reason to meet with a career advisor, because exploration of possibilities is something that we can help you with. So, for example, let me think. I've had a few students this semester who've fallen into that kind of category, and in talking to the students. So, for example, there's one in particular today. She's like, I don't really know what internship I might want to do for spring of 2023. And I said, here's an idea. Go into Handshake, start reading the job descriptions, and see if you could imagine yourself doing those roles, doing those tasks. And she thought that was helpful because then by doing that, by doing that process, at least it's like it's a way of working through the uncertainty. It feels more like she actually has some kind of control over the process than just being like, I don't know what to do. So it gives a certain amount of agency, I'd say. And then please repeat the second part.
The second part was just like general advice to students that might not be sure what their career path
Okay.
would look like.
General advice to students who are not sure about their career path. I like to tell people that, of course, in the Career Center, we are the main people to talk about careers, but we're not the only people on campus. So I like to talk to students about different categories of people, and they might be on campus, they might be elsewhere. So for example, professors, right? So professors, if you think about it, not all of them have only worked in the university setting. Some of them, I can think of Carl Levan in School of International Service, for example, used to work on Capitol Hill. So many professors have other work experience that could be insightful and useful. But even if they don't, even if they've been professors their whole careers, they have colleagues who they work with. Sometimes they do research with or write opinion pieces with, who are in different offices, different kinds of like think tanks, research organizations. So that's another category of person to actually seek information and advice from. Also, another favorite category of mine, older students. So let's say you're a sophomore, maybe you're thinking about an internship, but you haven't done one yet. Undoubtedly, there's a junior or senior out there who has. And so if you don't know, sometimes students say, well, I don't really have that many people who are older in my classes. You can always talk to your RA in the dorm, or even, sometimes professors will be good for this purpose, to ask if there's other people who you might speak to. So those are a few thoughts on that. Does that cover?
Yes,
Thank you. Great. Thank you for the questions. Yeah. Anything else from our audience here as far as questions or yes?
When it comes to like major exploration, like how would if we committed to one major and we took like classes, how would changing majors affect what requirements we still need?
Oh yeah, great. So majors, in terms of a major, let's say you chose a major, you started taking classes, and then you decided to do a different major. How does that affect your requirements? This is weird. These questions are about people someone else I talked to this morning who was thinking of the same thing and was a little bit worried that like, if I change majors, is that gonna kind of like make me scramble and try to fit in the requirements? And what I explained was, think of it this way. Better that you discover what you don't want to do and change from that major. Then, unfortunately, sometimes people figure out too late that, oh, this major is not what I want. And then they don't have enough time to switch. And so they have to continue with that major. So what I'll say is, yes, there might be some challenges with requirements when you change a major, but it's expected. And I would say that the curriculum is designed to allow for that change of direction. So my point would be not to worry so much about the challenges that you face, but to be grateful that you've identified what it was that you preferred over what you were studying, and that's going to set you probably on a better path moving forward anyway. And one more final thought on majors. What you do as a major does not have to define what your career path is. We've seen all sorts of examples. I can think of English majors who went into the tech industry, for example. Your ability to adjust, to learn new skills is really limitless. And especially now with things like LinkedIn Learning and other online tools, we have the capacity to learn new things to a degree that we didn't really have in the past, that it's just more efficiently to learn those new skills. So I would argue that the major you choose does not, you don't have to like project into the future as far as what your career is going to do. Those of us who have more experience and some gray hairs here can attest to the fact that your career is going to follow a trajectory that you can't really predict anyway. So if that's the case, just focus on where you are right now. What is it that you enjoy studying? What gives you a reward as far as like interest? And then keep asking yourself, am I still interested in this topic? And then if not, maybe it's time to move, to something else. Great, thanks for the question.
There's a question maybe on chat. Is it a good idea, like how many internships or jobs should I be applying to if I'm looking for like a spring or summer internship?
Oh my gosh, that was another question that I had this morning. Now I can't remember if I can't tell you, like, was it the student A, B, or C? Like they might have mixed in, sometimes people ask me two different things. Not that it matters. Anyway, so how many internships for spring should I apply for? So the answer I gave, this is what I said. It depends. So it depends partly on how competitive are the organizations that you're applying to. If you're applying to Brookings Institution and Center for Strategic and International Studies, for example, which are highly competitive types of internships, then you might need to apply to more positions than you would otherwise apply to. On the converse, if you're applying to small nonprofits where maybe they're not very well known, they don't get so many applicants, it might not be necessary to apply for as many positions. I came up with the number 7 as an average of many of the students that I meet with as far as how many positions they apply for internships. So I'm going to say 7 to 10. Now it sounds like a lot, right? But if you think about this, try to apply for positions as you find them. So don't just like bunch everything up and then attempt to send them all out. So as you find a position you're interested in, try to apply to it. Try to apply soon after you see it. That'll increase your chances of being successful. And then continue in the process in the time frame that you have available to apply for the spring internships to find new positions and apply for them. And don't stop. I would say don't stop until you until the process ends. So like sometimes students have a tendency to say, oh, I really want this position, so I'm gonna cross my fingers and wait until I hear back from it. Well, maybe not the best strategy. So keep applying and don't apply for things that you're not interested in. Some people might think, well, I don't really like this internship, but I want to get an internship, so let me apply for it. Trust your instinct. If you think that you're not going to enjoy it, you probably won't enjoy it. If you're not sure, it might be worth applying. So it's like, this position looks kind of interesting. I don't know for sure if it would be a good fit for me. Well, that might be a reason to apply for it. And then through the process, if you interview, you'll learn more information. You might decide, yes, that's something I really do enjoy, or definitely not. And so don't stop yourself before you begin, I guess is that recommendation. All right. Well, I think that probably answers everything. I want to thank my virtual audience and those in person for coming. Really appreciate your participation. And remember, this, I don't know why, I had a professor from college just pop into my head. His name is Ron Kahn. He did constitutional law. And it's kind of, constitutional law. And he always talked about freedom of speech, and like more speech is better. So I'm going to take that example and I'm going to finish by saying more conversations are better, more discussion and more sort of like openness to possibilities is, I think, a great approach for you as you think about your job search as well as your career development. I hope that fits, and good luck with all your efforts. Thank you, everyone.